The elevator in Sarah's apartment building had been broken for 3 weeks, which meant climbing 14 flights of stairs every day. But that Tuesday morning, she sat on the 6th floor landing, wheezing, her chest burning, unable to go up or down. Her 12-year-old daughter, Emma, stood beside her, late for school again, watched her mother struggle to breathe. "Mom, should I call someone?" Emma asked, and Sarah heard something in her daughter's voice that broke her heart. It wasn't panic or fear. It was resignation. This had become normal, watching her 300-pound mother, unable to do basic things like climb stairs, or tie her own shoes, or play at the park. Sarah wanted to say she was fine, but the words wouldn't come through her, gasping. A neighbor found them there 20 minutes later and helped Sarah back down to the lobby. Emma went to school alone, again, while Sarah sat in her apartment, staring at the wall of failed diets taped to her refrigerator. Weight Watchers, keto, paleo, intermittent fasting, each one covered in red X's, marking the days she'd failed. That night, Emma came home with a school project about family histories. She needed to interview a grandparent, but Sarah's mother had died 5 years ago from complications of diabetes, essentially eating herself to death at 400 pounds. Sarah's grandmother had died the same way, and her great-grandmother too. 4 generations of women killing themselves slowly with food. Emma looked at the family photos spread across their kitchen table. All these women getting progressively larger in each generation, and asked the question Sarah had been dreading. "Mom, am I going to die like Grandma?" Sarah couldn't answer. She just pulled Emma close and cried into her daughter's hair, feeling the weight of generations of failure crushing down on her. But Emma wasn't crying. She pulled back and looked at her mother with 12-year-old determination and said something strange. "Mrs. Tanaka told us about her grandfather today." Mrs. Tanaka was Emma's history teacher, a tiny Japanese woman in her 70s who still rode her bike to school every day. Sarah had always wondered how someone that age could have so much energy. She said her grandfather worked in a factory that was completely destroyed in the war. Everything gone, turned to rubble. All the workers thought it was hopeless, that they'd never rebuild. But her grandfather had this saying he'd repeat every morning. Emma pulled out her notebook, where she'd written it down in careful letters. Kaizen wa Tsuzuku. Improvement continues. Mrs. Tanaka said it means you don't rebuild the whole factory at once. First, you clear one brick, then another brick, then another, and one day you look up and there's a building there. She said her grandfather cleared one brick every morning before sunrise, even when it seemed pointless, even when everyone said he was wasting his time. 5 years later, that factory was producing more than it ever had before the war. Sarah looked at her daughter, this child forced to grow up too fast, who'd learned to make her own breakfast because mom couldn't stand long enough to cook, who'd stopped asking for piggyback rides at age 6, who'd never known what it was like to have a mother who could run with her. "Mom," Emma said, "what if we didn't try to fix everything tomorrow? What if we just cleared one brick?" That night, after Emma went to bed, Sarah looked up Mrs. Tanaka's story. She found an article about the teacher's grandfather, a man named Hiroshi Tanaka, who'd become legendary in Japanese manufacturing for rebuilding the Matsushita electric factory using something called the Kaizen method. But what caught Sarah's attention wasn't the business success. It was a photo of Hiroshi at age 80, still working, still improving things, with a quote underneath: "The mountain is moved one pebble at a time. The person who moves one pebble has moved the mountain more than the person who stares at the peak." Sarah thought about all her failed diets, each one an attempt to move the entire mountain at once. Starting Monday, no carbs, no sugar, no processed food, exercise an hour a day, drink a gallon of water. By Wednesday, she'd be exhausted, defeated, binging on everything she'd forbidden herself. The next morning, Sarah woke up to find Emma had left a sticky note on the coffee maker. "One brick, Mom. Just one." Sarah stood there in her kitchen, 300 pounds of failure and shame, and decided to move one pebble. She poured her usual 3 cups of coffee, with 6 sugars and heavy cream, then did something so small, it felt ridiculous. She left out 1 sugar. Still 5 sugars, still heavy cream, still too much coffee, but 1 less sugar than yesterday. That was it. Her entire diet plan. 1 less sugar. Emma came home from school to find her mother hadn't done anything dramatic. No gym membership, no cleaned out pantry, no motivational quotes on the mirror. Just Mom, drinking coffee with slightly less sugar. But there was something different in her mother's eyes. Not hope exactly, but maybe the absence of despair. Day 2. Sarah used 1 less sugar again. 4 sugars now. Day 3. She held at 4 sugars, but poured a tiny bit less cream. Day 4. She walked to the mailbox at the end of the hall and back. 15 steps each way. Day 5. She stood while folding laundry instead of sitting. Each change was so small that her body didn't panic. Her mind didn't rebel. Her survival instincts didn't scream danger. She was sneaking past her own defenses, 1 pebble at a time. Now let me tell you what Sarah was actually discovering, though she didn't know the name for it yet. She was practicing Kaizen, which isn't really an ancient technique at all, but a philosophy born from the ashes of World War II. The word itself combines 2 Japanese characters, Kai, meaning change, and Zen, meaning good. Together, they mean continuous improvement. But the deeper meaning is about something more profound, something about how humans actually change. The concept was developed when American occupation forces helped rebuild Japan's destroyed industry after the war. An American statistician named W. Edwards Deming taught Japanese engineers that instead of massive overhauls, they should focus on tiny, continuous improvements. The Japanese took this idea and transformed it into something deeper, combining it with their cultural understanding that patience and persistence matter more than dramatic gestures. By week 2, Sarah had made it to 3 sugars in her coffee and could walk to the elevator and back without stopping. Emma didn't say anything, but she started leaving different sticky notes. "I see you, Mom," and "1 more brick," and "Grandma would be proud." What Sarah didn't realize was that she was working with her brain instead of against it. Dr. Robert Maurer, a psychologist at UCLA who studied Kaizen, discovered that our brains have something called an amygdala, an alarm system that triggers fear when we attempt big changes. This fear response is why we sabotage our own efforts at transformation. But when changes are tiny enough, they slip under the amygdala's radar. The brain doesn't recognize them as threats. Week 3, Sarah made it up 1 flight of stairs before needing to rest. Her coffee was down to 2 sugars. She'd started putting half her usual portion of butter on her bread. Not because she was on a diet, but because it had become a game. What's the smallest change I can make today? Mrs. Tanaka stopped by one afternoon to drop off Emma's homework. Sarah was embarrassed to have the tiny, fit woman in her apartment, but Mrs. Tanaka looked at the failed diet list on the refrigerator and said something unexpected. My grandfather weighed over 200 pounds when he started rebuilding the factory. By the time it was finished, he weighed 140. He never went on a diet. He just moved one more brick each day. She explained that in Japan, there's a principle called HARA HACHI BU, eating until you're 80% full. But her grandfather didn't start there. He started by leaving one bite of rice in his bowl. One bite, then 2 bites, then 3. It took him 5 years to lose 60 pounds, the same 5 years it took to rebuild the factory. Americans always want to run before they can walk, Mrs. Tanaka said. But walking is not failure. Walking is how you learn to run. By month 2, Sarah had lost 8 pounds, not from dieting, but from 37 tiny changes that had accumulated. 2 sugars in coffee, slightly smaller portions, walking 2 flights of stairs, standing while talking on the phone, parking 1 space further from the store entrance. Each change so small that her friends didn't even notice she was doing anything different. But Emma noticed. Her mother was standing straighter, breathing easier, smiling more. Not because she'd lost significant weight, but because she'd proven to herself that change was possible. This connects to something powerful about Kaizen that goes beyond weight loss or addiction. It's about identity transformation. Every tiny positive action is a vote for the person you want to become. Sarah wasn't trying to lose weight anymore. She was becoming someone who takes the stairs, someone who drinks less sugar, someone who moves a little more each day. Research from University College London found that forming new habits takes an average of 66 days. But here's what's beautiful about Kaizen. You're not trying to form a big habit. You're forming tiny habits that stack on top of each other. Sarah's coffee ritual led to better breakfast choices, which led to having more energy, which led to taking short walks, which led to sleeping better, which led to waking up earlier, which led to having time to pack healthy lunches. Month 3 brought something unexpected. Sarah's sister called, panicked. Their cousin Maria, only 35, had just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, continuing the family curse. "We're all going to die like Mom," her sister cried. But Sarah said something that surprised them both. "No, we're not. We're going to change, one brick at a time." She told her sister about Kaizen, about Mrs. Tanaka's grandfather, about the coffee with 1 less sugar. Her sister laughed. "That's your solution? Less sugar in coffee?" But Sarah's 8-pound weight loss was more than she'd managed in 5 years of crash diets. Here's where the story gets interesting. Sarah's sister started her own version, 1 less cigarette per day. Their cousin Maria started with walking to her mailbox. Sarah's neighbor, who'd helped her that day on the stairs, started with 1 push-up. Not 10 push-ups, not 20. 1. This ripple effect is documented in research about social networks and behavior change. When people see gradual, sustainable change in someone they know, they're more likely to believe change is possible for themselves. But when they see dramatic transformations, they often feel more discouraged, thinking, "I could never do that." By month 4, Sarah had lost 15 pounds, and could make it up 6 flights of stairs. Still not great, but better than the woman who'd been trapped on the landing. Her coffee was down to 1 sugar, and she discovered she actually liked the taste of coffee itself, something that had been hidden under all that sweetness for years. But the real change was psychological. She'd stopped seeing herself as a failure. Every tiny improvement was proof that she was capable of change. The woman who couldn't control herself around food had controlled herself in 1,000 tiny ways. Building what experts call self-efficacy, the belief in your own ability to succeed. Taiichi Ohno, who perfected Kaizen at Toyota, said something profound. Progress cannot be generated when we are satisfied with existing situations. But he also said, the slower but consistent tortoise causes less waste and is more desirable than the speedy hare that races ahead and then stops occasionally to doze. Sarah was the tortoise now, moving so slowly that people barely noticed, but moving constantly forward. Month 5 brought the first major test. Thanksgiving. The family gathered, tables groaning with food, everyone piling their plates high. Sarah's aunt, seeing her smaller portion, said, "Oh, are you on another diet? Which one will you quit this time?" The old Sarah would have been devastated, would have eaten to spite them or to comfort herself. But Sarah had been practicing something else from Kaizen philosophy called WABI-SABI, the acceptance of imperfection. She didn't need to be perfect at Thanksgiving. She just needed to be slightly better than last Thanksgiving. She had pie, but 1 slice instead of 3. She had stuffing, but 1 spoonful less than she wanted. She enjoyed everything, restricted nothing, but practiced conscious moderation. Emma watched her mother navigate the meal with grace and whispered, "How many bricks is that now, Mom?" Sarah smiled. "I've lost count, baby. That's the point." By month 6, Sarah had lost 22 pounds. Still obese by medical standards, still unable to run, still shopping in plus-size stores. But she could climb all 14 flights to her apartment. She could tie her shoes without losing her breath. She could stand long enough to cook dinner for Emma. More importantly, she'd broken the psychological pattern that had trapped 4 generations of women in her family. The all-or-nothing thinking, the cycle of restriction and binging, the identity of, "I'm someone who can't control myself." She'd replaced it with something simpler. "I'm someone who improves a little bit each day." The research on this is fascinating. A 2021 study in addiction research theory found that people with structured daily routines were 38% less likely to relapse into old behaviors. But here's what they didn't emphasize enough. The routines that worked weren't complicated. They were simple, tiny daily actions that built into patterns. Sarah's morning routine had evolved naturally. Wake up, make coffee with 1 sugar, walk to the stairwell, climb 2 flights, walk back, eat breakfast with Emma. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would make a motivational Instagram post, just small, consistent actions that had become who she was. Month 8 brought unexpected news. Sarah's blood pressure, which had been dangerously high, was now in the normal range. Her doctor, who'd been pushing bariatric surgery, was stunned. "What diet are you on?" he asked. Sarah laughed. "The 1 less sugar diet," she said. He didn't understand, but the numbers didn't lie. This is supported by massive research on incremental change. The National Weight Control Registry, which tracks people who've lost significant weight and kept it off, found that successful maintainers didn't use dramatic methods. They made small, permanent changes to their daily habits. But Sarah's transformation went beyond weight. She'd started applying Kaizen to other areas. Her apartment, always cluttered, became cleaner through the one-item rule. Put away one thing every time she walked through a room. Her finances improved through the $1 rule. Save $1 more each week than the last. Her relationship with Emma deepened through the 1-minute rule. 1 extra minute of conversation each night before bed. Month 10. Sarah had lost 35 pounds. Emma's school was having a mother-daughter field day, something Sarah had always found excuses to miss. But this year, she signed up, not for the races or competitive events, but for the walking scavenger hunt. She and Emma walked for 2 hours, finding items, laughing, taking photos. At one point, they passed the track where other mothers were running relay races. Emma looked at them, then at her mother, and Sarah's heart sank, waiting for the disappointment. But Emma said, "Remember when you couldn't even walk to the mailbox? Look at you now, Mom. 2 hours of walking." That night, Sarah found an old photo of her mother, her grandmother, and her great-grandmother, all of them obese, all of them having died before age 60. She looked at Emma doing homework and made a decision. She wouldn't die at 60. She might not become thin, might never run a marathon, but she'd be alive and mobile and present. Year 1. Sarah had lost 48 pounds, still overweight, still working on it, still taking stairs one at a time. But she'd done something more important than losing weight. She'd proven that the family curse wasn't genetic destiny, but learned behavior that could be unlearned one tiny step at a time. The science backs this up completely. Epigenetics research shows that while we inherit genetic predispositions, our behaviors can actually change how those genes express themselves. Sarah wasn't doomed by her DNA. She was trapped by inherited patterns that Kaizen helped her break. Mrs. Tanaka came to visit on the anniversary of that first day. She brought a gift, a photo of her grandfather's factory, fully rebuilt. "It took him 5 years," she said. 5 years of moving one brick each day. People called him crazy, but crazy is doing the same thing and expecting different results. He did something different. He did less, but he did it every day. Sarah had her own photo now. Her and Emma at the top of the Empire State Building, having climbed 86 flights of stairs. Not quickly, not easily, with many rest stops. But they'd made it. The woman who couldn't climb 6 flights a year ago had climbed 86. How? People asked her. "What's your secret?" Sarah's answer disappointed them. "I used 1 less sugar in my coffee." They wanted a dramatic story, a moment of transformation, a secret pill or program. But real change, lasting change, the kind that breaks generational patterns and rewrites destinies, doesn't happen in moments. It happens in thousands of tiny decisions that compound into transformation. Emma is 17 now. She's never been overweight, not because of genetics, but because she learned from watching her mother that health isn't about perfection, but about small daily choices. She keeps a sticky note on her mirror that says, "1 brick at a time." And when her friends crash diet before prom, she quietly maintains her habits, knowing what her mother proved. The mountain moves, 1 pebble at a time. Sarah, now down 70 pounds over 3 years, still practices Kaizen. Still 1 less, 1 more, 1 better each day. She'll never be thin by society's standards, might never reach her ideal weight. But she's broken a generational curse, shown her daughter that change is possible, and proved that transformation doesn't require superhuman willpower, just human persistence. The factory that Mrs. Tanaka's grandfather rebuilt still stands in Japan, now one of the most efficient manufacturing plants in the world. They still practice Kaizen, still making tiny improvements every day, decades after the rebuilding. Because that's the secret. Kaizen never ends. There's no finish line, no final victory, just continuous, gentle, sustainable improvement. Sarah's refrigerator no longer has failed diet plans taped to it. Instead, there's a single photo. Her and Emma at the top of those Empire State Building stairs, both of them crying and laughing. Proof that impossible things become possible one step at a time. When people struggling with their own mountains ask Sarah for advice, she tells them about a philosophy that isn't ancient, isn't magical, isn't even particularly Japanese anymore. It's human. It's the understanding that we change not through revolution, but through evolution. Not through perfection, but through persistence. Not through drama, but through daily decisions that seem too small to matter until they've moved mountains. Start with one less sugar, she tells them, or one flight of stairs, or 1 minute of movement, or one breath before reacting. Start so small that you can't fail, so small that it seems pointless. That's where transformation begins. Because whether you're fighting obesity like Sarah, battling addiction, drowning in debt, trapped in depression, or just feeling like life should be better than this, the path is the same. Not a leap across the chasm, but a bridge built one plank at a time. The 29.3 million Americans who've overcome addiction didn't do it through willpower alone. They did it through systems, through tiny habits, through Kaizen, whether they called it that or not. One meeting, one call, one day, 1 hour, 1 minute at a time. Your mountain is waiting. Your bricks are scattered. Your first pebble is sitting right there. So small, you've been stepping over it, waiting for something bigger to move. But Mrs. Tanaka's grandfather knew better. Sarah knows better. And now you know better. The mountain doesn't care how small your first pebble is. It only cares that you pick it up and move it. And then pick up another and another. Until one day you turn around and realize you've built something extraordinary from nothing but ordinary moments. What's your one less sugar? What's your single brick? What's the smallest possible step you can take today? Take it. That's where everything begins.